Good morning, Milton. Can you hear me now? I see some people couldn't hear me. If you couldn't hear me, I said we'd love to hear what some of your dadisms are. What are some things that your dad used to always say? Just little quotes that was always something that he said, and you can remember that's my dad. Good morning, Timothy. We are really, really happy to celebrate Father's Day this morning. So if you're a dad, thanks for hanging out with us. We really appreciate you. Happy Father's Day to you. What else is happening on YouTube? Oh, good. You guys can hear me now. That's exciting. Hi, Jenny. Hi, Amanda. Good morning, guys. Another one my dad used to say, he was a contractor for 40, well, still is, but his primary gig was a general contractor, and he always used to say whenever he was working on stuff for our family, good enough for who it's for. That was one of his things. Oh, because I said so. That's a good one, Nick. Have you used that one with your kids yet? Rebecca's, did you turn off the light switch? Yes, of course. Dads are always concerned about the electric bill. That and shut the door, we're not heating the whole neighborhood. That was another one. Miranda's dad says, well, they just let anyone in here, huh? Adrian, oh, that's a good one. If you're gonna be dumb, you better be tough. That's just wise counsel for everybody, isn't it? Miranda, it's raining like a cow peeing on a flat rock out there. That sounds like my dad's toad string thing. I don't know. Dads can come up with some weird stuff. It's dads. They're pretty good about that. You can choose your action, but you can't choose your consequences. That's also wise counsel. Anybody got any good dad jokes this morning too? Any good dad jokes? No. My son is 16 and he's started with the dad jokes already. Good morning, Sophia. We're glad you're here this morning. Are you guys doing anything special for your fathers today? Taking them out to dinner, or I don't know, mowing the grass for them so they don't have to do it, something like that? Timothy, what kind of dog does a magician have? That's a dad joke. What's the punchline? We'll have to wait for the punchline later. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with us. We're going to get the service started this morning, so happy Father's Day.
Wrong song. When I go, don't cry for me. In my Father's arms I'll be. The words this world left on my soul, I'll be. us no more. Weep not for me, my friend, when my time below does end. And I will belong to him for my dead again. It don't matter where you bury me. It don't matter, no, it don't matter. I'll be home and I'll be free. It don't matter where I lay. All my tears be washed away. Come on, Bryce. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. When I go, don't cry for me. In my Father's arms I'll be. The wounds this world left on my soul, but I'll be healed and I'll be whole. The sun and moon will be replaced with the light of Jesus' face. And I will not be ashamed, for my Savior knows my name. It don't matter where you bury me. Come on. I'll be home and I'll be free. It don't matter where I lay. All my tears be washed away. It don't matter where you bury me. I'll be home and I'll be free. It don't matter where I lay. All my tears be washed away. All my tears be washed away. All my tears be washed away.
Hey guys, thanks for hanging out with us this morning. Welcome to Stonebrooke Online. Happy Father's Day. I wanted to just take a second to mention we do have some resources available. We know times are a little weird and a little tough right now. If you need some sort of help, any kind of help, whether it's financial, physical, emotional, any kind of help, we are here for you. We want to be available for you. So if you need anything, please check us out at Stonebrooke Cares. We would love to partner with you, help you through whatever it is that you need. So we do have that resource available. Please be sure and check that out if you need that. Also, we want to know who's hanging out with us this morning. If you've never joined us online this morning, we would love to get to know you a little bit better. You can fill out our online Connect card. Just take a second. We won't do anything weird with your information, but we do want to say hey and thanks for hanging out with us. So if you have a second this morning, go fill that out. We would love to get to know you. So thanks again for hanging out with us this morning, and happy Father's Day to those dads out there. We're really glad that you're hanging out with us today. Mark's going to be here in just a few minutes with a message, and then we'll have another song, and that'll be it for today. So have a great day. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Mark. I'm one of the pastors here at Stonebrooke, and I'm really glad that you tuned in this morning to hang out with us for a little while. We are going to talk about Jesus, of course, and address some issues that some people have brought up. We've spent the past several weeks just talking about different questions that people have about God, about the Bible, what God is like, what God expects from us. And so we're going to continue a question that we had come in a few weeks ago that we started last week. But before we do, if you have a question, we really like for there to be a conversation. Stonebrooke is a place where you can explore faith. You can have doubts, you can have questions, and you can still belong. And we want it to be a place where you are safe to ask anything at all. So if you have a question, you can text us that at 415-SB-ROCKS. That's 415-727-6257. And you can ask anonymously. And we'll try over the next several weeks to work that question in if we can. And it just helps us to know, even in preparing messages, which direction to go. We want to address subjects that matter to you, that are rubber meets the road, everyday life questions. And so we love to hear from you. So feel free to send in a question. We had a question that came in several weeks ago, and I'll summarize it. We've spent a couple weeks talking about it. It basically was from someone that says, how do I know if God still loves me, even though I am gay? And this person, I don't know if it's a man or a woman, but they said that they have experienced exclusion, and they've experienced sort of judgment and being made to feel guilty at various churches, and have been discouraged in trying to become a part of a local church. And they basically want to know, what does God think? What does the Bible say? What happens if I'm a person who's gay? Is that okay? Are there adjustments that have to be made? What does God think? And so we were looking at that. And we spent some time talking about some things that Jesus said, some things even from the Old Testament to prepare us for that. We won't cover those again. You can go back on our Facebook page or on our website, stonebrooke.tv, and look up some of those past messages. But we sort of wrapped up last time, ending with something that Jesus said in the book of John. John was one of Jesus' closest followers, one of his best friends, and this story happened at a gathering that Jesus had the night before he was crucified. He gathered his closest followers around, and they were used to hearing the word commandment. And if you've ever been to church, you've probably heard the word commandment a lot. People make a big deal about the top 10 commandments in the Old Testament and sort of use them as a gauge or a standard to live by. But Jesus did something sort of radical on this final night of his ministry, the final night that he had together with his ministry team, and he had some last-minute instructions for them. This is what was on Jesus' mind right before he was to go to the cross to fulfill his mission to bear the sins of the world, to display the love of God to the entire world. He gathered his closest friends around and he said, okay, I'm giving you a new commandment. And I'm sure they almost looked at each other and were like, time out, what do you mean a new commandment? We not only have the top 10 commandments, but the old covenant has 613 commandments that we are supposed to do in order to please God, so now you're adding another one? What Jesus was saying is, let's sort of not focus on all those really detailed, granular things, the way you're supposed to dress, to what you're supposed to eat, and so many things that the Jewish people adopted to make themselves culturally different, to sort of be separate from the world. Jesus said, if we had to wrap all this up into one nutshell and just one little gift to you with a little bow on top of it, here's what I want you to remember. Here's the one job. Love each other. Love each other. You could take everything that you can quote from the Old Testament or the New Testament, and you can distill that down into one thing. I'm giving you a new guideline. You don't have to remember all these rules and regulations. Here's all you got to remember. Love each other, just as I have loved you. Not even love your neighbor as yourself. This takes it a step further. Anytime that you are thinking about someone, or anytime you're in interaction with someone, I want you to think how I have interacted with you. I want you to think how I've treated you, how I've had mercy on you, how I've accepted you, how I've accommodated who you are, and I've loved you through it all. Just as I have loved you, I want you to love each other just like that. Now, we have a phrase that we use here at Stonebrooke that it's not necessarily in the Bible, but it's just something that we sort of came up with to describe the kind of church that we believe Jesus wants to have. And we use this phrase, unified diversity. And we recognize that there are people from all over the world, all kinds of different backgrounds. You were raised different ways. You come from different cultures, different parts of the country and world, different ethnicities, different ways of thinking, different religions. And Jesus envisioned a place where everyone was welcome, everyone is accepted, no matter where you are in your spiritual journey. You may be someone that has known Jesus for 50 years or someone who's still questioning whether Jesus exists or not. Jesus envisioned that the way that the world would change is we would have these gatherings called a church, and people from all walks of life with all different stages of development would come together and they would just love each other. And they would be unified. They'd be one, just like a family where you have that weird uncle or that crazy cousin, or your mom's just a little off and your dad is really introverted and he stays off by himself. But you gather around the same table, and you may have voted for different people. You may have relationships with people of different races. You may have relationships with people of different social and economic statuses. But when you gather around the table, you're all eating the same food. You're all in the same family. And even though you don't agree on everything, even though you have different viewpoints, you still love each other. And we are one. And so that's what we mean by unified diversity, that we are a family that simply loves, and we have conversations and we work things out, and we leave certain things up to God dealing in an individual's life, but we are unified. So that's sort of the basis for what we believe Jesus had in mind when he instituted the church. Now, I started last week talking about that there's 4 basic views concerning being gay in the church. And here at Stonebrooke, we would have someone that holds each of these 4 views. The first view is simply this: being gay is not okay. That's a viewpoint that many Christians have. And they use scriptures from the Old Testament like this. In Leviticus chapter 18, verse 22, it says, "Do not practice homosexuality. Having sex with another man as with a woman, it's a detestable sin." They use some scriptures, and there are 3 basic passages in the Old Testament and 3 basic passages in the New Testament that some people call the clobber passages, that people use to say, hey, it's just not okay to be gay because of this. By the way, if you read through Leviticus, you'll find a lot of other things that Leviticus says is a detestable sin. Wearing 2 different types of material, for example, cotton and polyester together, that's a big no-no. Planting corn and beans in the same field, that's against the law, that's a detestable sin. Picking up sticks on the Sabbath day actually can get you stoned by the entire village. If you have a daughter that backtalks you, you are required, according to these scriptures, to bring her before the entire village and have her stoned until she is dead. There are so many things that the Old Testament, especially as we look through the book of Leviticus, says are detestable sins, but we, for some reason, have focused exclusively on this here in chapter 18 of Leviticus. But this is a scripture that some people would use to say, hey, being gay is not okay. In the book of Romans, it says that's why God abandoned them to their shameful desires. Even the women turned against the natural way to have sex and instead indulged in sex with each other. And the men, instead of having normal sexual relationships with women, burned with lust for each other. Men did shameful things with other men, and as a result of this sin, they suffered within themselves the penalty they deserved. Their lives became full of every kind of wickedness. Now notice, people really, really focus on how that they believe homosexuality is wrong, but then they don't know that the next verse goes on. Their lives became full of every kind of wickedness, sin, greed, hate, envy. Have you ever been envious? Have you ever been greedy? Murder, quarreling, deception, malicious behavior, and gossip. But nobody ever says, you know, you can't come to our church if you gossip, because most churches, frankly, would be empty. And so they don't mention these certain things. They go on. Paul goes on in Romans 1 and says they're backstabbers, haters of God, insolent, proud. Someone is prideful and boastful, They invent new ways of sinning, and they disobey their parents. Who are we going to allow in our church if we can't have somebody that disobeys their parents? Our children's ministry is completely out the window. There must be something else going on here. And if you believe that being gay is not okay, that's fine. You can come to Stonebrooke. There are people, in fact, I've had people who were very, very much gay who came to me after a few weeks being at Stonebrooke and said, I'm having a hard time. I don't want to attend a church that says it's okay to be gay. And they were gay. So we have people here. We don't have to fall into a certain slot or a certain rule or a certain way of thinking. We are all in process. I've had people that we, by the way, not only have people who believe each of these four views, we do have and have had people who identify as gay who hold each one of these four views and have had a conversation with me concerning that view. The point is we're all growing. The point is we're all in process. And no matter where we are in that walk, no matter with what thoughts we're struggling with, you're accepted and you're loved. And we don't want to be a place where people are judged and condemned and not allowed to participate because they hold a particular view. The second view is being gay is okay if you don't act gay. And this simply says that, okay, you're gay. And like we said with the first view, some people would say it's not even okay to have that desire. This is something that I really struggle with because I'm not trying to be heterosexual. I didn't wake up one day and choose, I think I'm really going to be attracted to the opposite sex. Well, people that are attracted to the same sex didn't wake up one day and choose that either. This is why it is really the greater sin for those of us that we just were born a certain way. We have a certain feeling. We have a certain attraction. But we've chosen to really condemn someone who also was born with a certain attraction. They're not trying anything different. And we are judging them for doing the same thing that we are doing. But number two, being gay is okay if you don't act gay. That would be people that say, certain people are born with a disposition, with a certain orientation, but as long as you don't act out that particular desire, then you're okay. It's the actual act of sexual encounters with people of the same sex that is the actual sin. Once again, I've had people who identify as gay attend our church who were living right here. They say, I'm definitely gay. I'm simply not going to act out on that desire. I'm not condemning them for that. And we had lots and lots of conversations about that, loved and honored them in that. And that's a choice that they have made. That's what they are getting from reading the scriptures. Number three, point of view would say being gay is okay if you're in a committed monogamous relationship. Now, this is something that's really interesting because the scriptures that we have, especially like in Leviticus, are passages that are written about 3,500 years ago. And the scripture that we read, like from Romans, for example, that is from the very first century. The idea of homosexuality in the first century is very different from what many people see today, where you had people that were using their power, using their position of authority to sort of dominate another individual who was not necessarily a willing partner, who was not necessarily a loving, committed partner, but it was an act of exerting influence and showing that I am over you in society, or I have won victory over you in battle, and therefore I'm going to subdue or subjugate you through this homosexual act. And there are people that believe, and there is some justification to what they believe in the scripture. I can see what they are saying, to where this is not at all, number one, what we are experiencing, And it's not, the scripture isn't referring to two people who've decided to be in a committed, monogamous relationship. Therefore, those scriptures, while technically some words may say a particular thing, the spirit behind it is not at all saying that we can't be in a committed, monogamous relationship. And there is such validity to what they are saying. And then the fourth belief, the fourth viewpoint of what does it mean to be Christian and gay, would simply say, why are we even talking about this? Of course, being gay is okay. And there's just nothing at all wrong. Do whatever you would like to do. And like I said, we have people with this viewpoint of every single viewpoint here at Stonebrooke. Now, I just want to close these last several minutes and just read some passages from Romans, because it's not a new thing that we have people who consider themselves as Jesus followers who disagree on the nuts and bolts of exactly what that means. And it's human nature, and it's fed by religion, frankly, that is constantly not only wanting to separate, but making a certain group of people feel better than another group of people because of what they do or don't do, or believe or don't believe. And Paul addresses this. One of the hot button issues in the first century was, are you supposed to eat meat that's been offered to idols? Idols were a huge thing. The pantheon of gods in the Roman Empire was a belief that was held by the majority of non-Jewish people. And so as people began to accept Jesus, they knew that some people, even when you bought meat at the supermarket, it wasn't a supermarket, but you bought it in the town market, that some people had offered that meat in worship to an idol, and now we're selling it. So the hot button issue was, I don't think we should even eat that meat because somebody is worshipped in a bad way with it. So what does Jesus think? Paul addresses it like this. Now, to us in the 21st century, we think, what's the big deal? To them, it was huge. It was a much bigger deal than what the church has made out of, can a person be a Christian? Can they be gay? How does that work? Much bigger deal. Here's what Paul said. He said, accept other believers who are weak in faith and don't argue with them about what they think is right or wrong. That's where we want to go. Excuse me, Paul, but have you read the Bible? The Bible talks about what is right or wrong. Paul's saying, yeah, I know. But in the family of God, when we're Jesus followers, there's an acceptance. And this focus on what is right and what is wrong is what has kept us separated from God and separated from each other. So don't argue with people about what they think is right or wrong. He goes on and says, for one person, for instance, they believe it's all right to eat anything. In other words, they don't believe that there's anything wrong as far as food. But another believer with a sensitive conscience, he says, oh no, you can only eat vegetables. Now because we don't have this big issue so much today, we say, well, what's the big deal if you eat meat or not? You know, maybe you're going to get heart disease or something, but it's not a Jesus issue. To them it was. Notice that some people thought there's really nothing wrong, and other people said, no, there are things wrong. That's the issue here. Those who feel free to eat anything must not look down on those who don't. You could put it this way. Those who think everything is perfectly fine, you shouldn't look down on people who don't think everything is perfectly fine. And those who don't eat certain foods must not condemn those who do. Another way to say this is, those of you that think that certain things are wrong, don't condemn people that think there's nothing wrong with that particular thing. He goes on and says, why? For God has accepted them. Who are you to condemn someone else's servants? Their own master will judge whether they stand or fall. And it's with the Lord's help they will stand and receive his approval. This is something, and we talked about it sort of last week, and I decided this years ago. When Jesus said, don't judge, the word judge means to make a decision. He's basically saying, don't make a decision when it comes to people. And then he goes on to say, if you really want to be like God, just shower your love on them indiscriminately like he showers the sun and the rain on everybody without thought to what they're doing wrong or right. And I decided long ago, I'm just going to introduce people to Jesus. I'm going to love them like Jesus loved me. And if Jesus wants to change something in them, then he's welcome to do that. I want to help them fall so much in love with Jesus that whatever he tells them, they will do. And if he never tells them to change something I think they ought to change, it's none of my business. It's between him and them. They're his servants. And if he wants me to change something that they think I should change, that's fine. If he doesn't, that's fine. We're diverse, but we're unified. He goes on and says, in the same way, some think one day is more holy than another day, while others think every day is alike. When I grew up, my grandfather thought you shouldn't work on Sunday. He thought that day was more holy. I don't think that day is more holy. Paul said, that's fine. You're both still accepted by God. You both can still be friends. You can go to the same church. You can love each other. You should each be fully convinced that whichever day you choose is acceptable. Those who worship the Lord on a special day, do it to honor him. Those who eat any kind of food, do it to honor the Lord, since they give thanks to God before eating. Those who refuse to eat certain foods also want to please the Lord and give thanks to God. The thing that helped me see so much many, many years ago are people that I had been taught were not accepted by God because what they were doing, they were more like Jesus than I was. They loved God with all their heart. They were serving other human beings. They were so loving and so compassionate. They were doing what Jesus said to do. And here I'd been taught, yeah, but they're doing the wrong stuff, so they're not in. But Jesus came to show us, no, that's religion that's separating you. Let me deal with whatever needs to change in them. You just love them. You just accept them just like I have. He goes on to say, why do you condemn another believer? Why do you look down on another believer? Remember, we all will stand before the judgment seat of God. Yes, each of us will give a personal account to God. He's saying, hey, it's between them and God. He says, I know and am convinced on the authority of the Lord Jesus that no food in and of itself is wrong to eat. Now replace food with whatever thing it is that you think that your neighbor or your friend or that other person that doesn't look or act like you, whatever you're thinking that they're doing that's wrong, substitute it there for food. Paul is saying, in and of itself, it's not wrong, but if someone believes it's wrong, then for that person it's wrong. Paul is basically saying, if you have a conviction that there is something that you shouldn't do, hey, don't do it. But don't impose that on someone else or separate from someone else or keep them from being involved in your relationships, in your church, in your group of friends because of what you see them doing. He says, so then let us aim for harmony in the church and try to build each other up. He said, you may believe there's nothing wrong with what you're doing, but keep it between yourself and God. Notice this. Blessed are those who don't feel guilty for something they have decided is right. What does your heart tell you? What does your relationship with God tell you? Are you feeling guilty about doing a certain thing? I know that if I have a certain amount of donuts, for example, I start to feel guilty. Well, but I don't put a number that no Christian should eat over 7 donuts. That's where we start making rules. We miss the intention of Jesus. Blessed are you, Paul says, when you don't feel guilty for allowing something in your life that you've decided is right. Our time has sort of run out for then. There's other scriptures I want to get to. But the bottom line, when Jesus said, love each other as I have loved you, is to constantly ask this question, what does love require? Does love require me to point out what I believe is wrong in others? Does love require me to separate from someone else because of a certain thing they do? Or does love require me, as God did with me, even when I wasn't doing everything right, even when I still had room for growth, where he opened his arms and said, you're mine, come home. If there's something that needs worked on, as we go, Jesus said, follow me. As we go, if there are things that need changing, he and I will discuss it, and he and I will work it out. But as far as he and you, I'm going to leave that between you, and I'm going to love you. So if you want to know what my view is concerning if can you be a Christian, can you be accepted by God, can you be accepted in the church, our church, and be someone that identifies as gay? Absolutely. come home. You're welcome here. You should be welcomed everywhere. If you're not, you're certainly welcome here. We love you. We accept you. And you just belong. So my time's gone. I went about 5 minutes over. But that's sort of something that many of you have gotten used to. Thanks for joining us this morning. We're going to start something new next week. I think I'm going to start teaching for a few weeks on the subject of prayer. This is a good time in the midst of all the different chaos that's going on in the world, to where we can not only be loving, but be men and women of prayer. And so we'll start that next Sunday. Thanks for being here today, guys. And the band, I believe, will be up here again for another song. Thanks for watching today.
You were forgiven. You were willing to call my name. Now you call me love the same as one of your children. Displayed your love to me recklessly. I see a passion upon a tree. You want me a kingdom, and I will live in a paradise. I will worship you day and night. You gave the commission that I seek to love the lost. Show the love of the King, whatever the cost. I am Jonah, I keep running away. 3 nights in darkness, 3 days in the grave. Without your grace, Lord, that's what I would say. But there's golden shores where washed up sinners lay. I'm undeserving, a broken mind and a heart of stone. Another Pharaoh upon his throne. I'm unworthy. Drown my sin in a sea of blood and lift me up with the cords of love. You tell me to love when there's not, where it's not, to pretend to speak life till it's done and your kingdom has come. You told me to go, but I run. So give me your courage. Make me willing to count the cost, to take my place on my knees in the shade of the cross. I am Jonah, I keep running away. 3 nights in darkness, 3 days in the grave. Without your grace, Lord, that's where I would stay. There's golden shores where washed up sinners lay. Thanks, guys, so much for singing with us. Feel free to have a seat. You're at home. If you're not sitting down, sit down now. It's a great time.